Wake up.
Have you ever felt lost, confused, or doubted your own reality? Mental rape, a severe form of psychological abuse, involves manipulation and control tactics that can devastate a person's mental and emotional well-being. So let's uncover 10 hidden signs that indicate you might be experiencing mental rape. One of the most crippling signs of mental rape is the victim's inability to make decisions. This symptom results from prolonged exposure to manipulation and control, where the abuser systematically undermines the victim's confidence and autonomy. The constant criticism, second-guessing, and invalidation of the victim's thoughts and choices create a pervasive sense of self-doubt and fear of making the wrong decisions. Victims might rely heavily on their abuser for making decisions, seeking their approval and guidance for everything from what to wear to significant life choices. This is often exacerbated by the fear of criticism or punishment from the abuser. This fear conditions the victim to avoid decision-making to prevent conflict and emotional pain. Over time, the victim becomes so accustomed to being controlled that they feel incapable of making independent decisions. Hypervigilance is a state of constant alertness and heightened sensitivity to one's surroundings, often experienced by victims of mental rape. This state of perpetual vigilance is a survival mechanism developed in response to ongoing psychological abuse and trauma. While it serves as a protective measure, hypervigilance can be exhausting and debilitating over time. Victims are always on the lookout for potential threats or triggers. This can involve meticulously observing others' body language and even subtle changes in the environment. A heightened, startled response to sudden noises or unexpected events is common. Victims might jump or react excessively to things that wouldn't normally be alarming. The inability to relax or feel safe can lead to significant sleep problems, such as insomnia or frequent waking during the night. The body's natural response to perceived threats is the fight-or-flight response. In a constant state of hypervigilance, this response is always activated, leading to chronic stress and anxiety. Repeated exposure to unpredictable and abusive behavior conditions the victim to remain on guard at all times. This conditioning creates an automatic response to perceived threats, even when they are not present. Chronic self-doubt is one of the most pervasive and debilitating effects of mental rape. This condition is characterized by a persistent lack of confidence in one's abilities, decisions, and worth. Because of their lack of self-trust, victims frequently seek validation and reassurance from others. They may depend heavily on friends, family, or colleagues to affirm their decisions and actions. The fear of making mistakes or facing criticism can lead victims to avoid taking risks or pursuing new opportunities. This avoidance behavior limits personal and professional growth. Repeated exposure to the abuser's negative comments and criticisms leads victims to internalize these messages. They start believing that they are inherently incapable or unworthy. With each critical remark or dismissive comment, the victim's confidence diminishes further. This can result in a cycle of low self-esteem and further dependence on the abuser. Loss of identity is one of the most profound and insidious effects of mental rape. This condition occurs when the abuser systematically strips away the victim's sense of self, leaving them feeling like a shadow of their former selves. Loss of identity can manifest in various ways, impacting every aspect of the victim's life. Victims may give up activities they once enjoyed because the abuser makes them feel guilty for engaging in them. Abusers use emotional manipulation to make the victim feel guilty or selfish for maintaining their own interests and opinions. By isolating the victim from friends and family, the abuser ensures that the victim's primary source of feedback and validation comes from them, making it easier to reshape the victim's identity. Victims may feel as though they have lost their sense of purpose. They may struggle to assert their needs and boundaries, leading to further cycles of manipulation and abuse. Fear of repercussions is a common and paralyzing symptom of mental rape. This fear can be paralyzing, preventing victims from speaking up, asserting themselves, or seeking help. The abuser cultivates an environment of intimidation and unpredictability, making the victim constantly anxious about the potential consequences of their actions. Victims often go to great lengths to avoid any action or statement that might provoke the abuser. This might mean avoiding certain topics, suppressing their opinions, or even altering their behavior to keep the peace. Through repeated exposure to the abuser's unpredictable and often violent reactions, victims develop a conditioned fear response. This response is triggered by any situation that might lead to conflict, making the victim overly cautious and submissive. Over time, victims might feel that no matter what they do, they cannot avoid negative consequences. This learned helplessness leads to a sense of powerlessness. Dependency is a critical and often devastating symptom of mental rape. This condition occurs when the abuser systematically strips away the victim's ability to function independently, making them entirely reliant on the abuser for emotional, financial, or physical support. The abuser creates an environment where the victim feels incapable of surviving without their control and guidance. In some cases, abusers might physically disable their victim's ability to care for themselves, either through physical harm or by convincing them that they are incapable of managing their well-being without the abuser's help. Victims often experience a profound sense of entrapment, feeling as though there is no way out of the abusive situation. This feeling is cultivated by the abuser through a combination of manipulation and isolation, making the victim believe that escape is impossible. The fear of what might happen if they leave the abuser can be paralyzing. This fear includes concerns about financial stability, physical safety, and the potential impact on children or other dependents. Emotional withdrawal occurs when the victim retreats emotionally from their surroundings and relationships as a coping mechanism to protect themselves from further psychological harm. The abuser's relentless manipulation and control tactics lead the victim to shut down emotionally, creating a barrier to protect their inner self from further damage. Victims may become distant and unresponsive in their relationships with family, friends, and partners. They may avoid emotional intimacy and find it difficult to connect with others on a deeper level. The suppression of emotions can make it challenging for victims to regulate their feelings effectively. They may struggle to express their emotions appropriately or cope with stress in healthy ways. Shame is a powerful emotion that can deeply affect a victim's sense of self-worth and identity. Abusers use shame to control and manipulate, making the victim feel inherently flawed and unworthy. Victims may constantly berate themselves for perceived failures and shortcomings. Dr. Brené Brown, a research professor and author who specializes in studying shame, explains that shame is a universal emotion that can have devastating effects if left unaddressed. Shame corrodes the very part of us that believes we are capable of change. Abusers use various tactics to create a state of confusion in their victims, making it difficult for them to trust their perceptions, judgments, and decisions. This state of mental conflict occurs when a person holds contradictory values or perceptions simultaneously. Abusers deliberately create confusion to destabilize their victims, sending mixed signals such as alternating between affection and hostility. This keeps the victim in a constant state of uncertainty, resulting in mental fatigue and impaired functioning. If you found this information helpful, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with anyone who might benefit from it. Until next time, stay strong and keep shining.